Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Maryann Petri. You can find me, my books, and blogs on dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com, as well as on Amazon. I've got a brand new guest. I have Claudette Collins on, all the way from British Columbia, Canada. She's a grandmother, retired from healthcare, and former Sunday school teacher, as well as home daycare provider. She's falsely accused in Alberta courts without any evidence against her by her adult daughter, her ex-boyfriend in a different province, and her long-distance family friend, who she's asked for advice and help regarding her daughter and grandchildren. And I'm really sorry this is happening to you, Claudette. It's happening to so many others. Where are you at now with your case?
Thank you. Um, I have trial in April. It's been two years, January 6th, that this has all transpired. Um, I have trial in April, and at this point, I have no lawyer that will take my case because of the interference by my lawyer. Yeah,
So,
so we're kind of at a standstill.
so then your first lawyer torpedoed your case.
Yeah, well, my first lawyer actually was with legal aid, and he was to help fight the restraining order. So if I want to back up just a little bit, there was some stuff going on with my daughter, her boyfriend's friend. My daughter believed that her boyfriend's friend and her boyfriend burned down their house, and then there was other incidences. There was a bruise left on my grandson. My granddaughter resided with me most of her life, and even after my daughter moved out. And I used to reach out to my daughter and say, she's missing you. She's really having a hard time with this. And so to me, that was neglect, but I'm trying to help my daughter as well. Um, and then when things had escalated and I was concerned for my grandson, I reached out to my daughter's friend, who is her mom and I were best friends, close family friends, an ECE teacher. And I said, look, I need your advice. And she lives in Ontario. We're in BC. And so she ended up, she knows everything. She has the evidence, everything. In the end, she ended up writing a really nasty letter about me for court. And I'm like, are you kidding? I have the evidence here.
Mm.
Um, so my daughter filed a restraining order because she had already inside help from her current boyfriend, his brother-in-law's a legal assistant in BC. And they gave them all the legal advice. And then the guy that owned the house in New Brunswick that burned down, um, he's connected to the lawyer that I hired. So in the end, my lawyer had never at any time disclosed to me that that would have been a conflict of interest.
Mm.
So that was never disclosed to me. So I ended up first getting the legal aid lawyer, never met him, never spoke with him. He didn't submit my affidavit or evidence. And when I went to court finally in May, the judge just said mutual restraining order, mutual no contact order. I'm like, wait a minute, can I speak? He goes, nope. And they just put it against me. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's no evidence. I have the evidence to prove that my daughter and her friends are framing me. Nobody will let me speak. And and I know my daughter ran because she was scared. I know that. But all you had to do was talk to me. It's pretty sinister what took place during that time and how my daughter and her ex-boyfriend of 6 months and her best friend just framed me and set me up for 3 months to get as much information as they could before she took off with both kids, taking my granddaughter from my home. Um, so then finally I ended up hiring actually, I spoke with Court Resolution. I made two applications, one for my granddaughter for shared guardianship because she resided with me, and then one for contact with my grandson who lives with my daughter and her boyfriend. And the court counsel, Karina Gillies, and I'm just going to put it out there because it's out there publicly. I filed with her, and then she told me I was not allowed to file by email unless I drove to the court. Well, that's like a 15-hour drive. So I'm driving all the way to Alberta, filing, going before the judge, and the judge just says, no, you need a lawyer for this. I said, all I'm asking is permission to serve by email. They wouldn't let me. I had to get a lawyer.
Mm.
So unfortunately, I left healthcare because I have an autoimmune disease. It's just my youngest daughter and myself at home. And I sold everything I had, my car, everything I owned to obtain this lawyer. And
Uh,
he said, wow, you've got an excellent case. You've got everything you need. If you'd had the money sooner, I could have had your granddaughter back with you.
mm,
I'm not looking to disrupt her life. I'm looking, one, to protect my grandchildren, but also to have her back in our lives. And so, how do you take a child from a home like a lot of parents understand that, and I know I'm just a grandparent, but she lived with me even after my daughter moved out.
mm,
So it's pretty devastating. Um, so my lawyer then is just continually putting stuff off and putting stuff off. And we go to court and he does not submit my affidavit. He doesn't submit my evidence and he bills me for it. And then because I have to go to court uh, to have contact to my granddaughter, I have to take my daughter and the birth father of my granddaughter, who's not in my granddaughter's life, that is parental alienation. So I had to um, serve him as well. It turned out really well. And in the end, him and I started talking. We discussed a lot of stuff. I said, all I knew that is that you guys were abusers, your parents were abusive, that you potentially were going to sexually abuse my granddaughter. So I did everything in my power to help my daughter and protect my granddaughter.
mhm,
That almost feels like karma in a way, because it's like I'm helping her because I'm believing her. So him and I talked, and he said, she told us these monstrous stories about you guys. I'm like, what? So I was
mm,
kind of floored. Yeah. And then, so the birth father emailed my lawyer and asked, do I need to submit an affidavit? My lawyer bills me $80 for a quick email. I was like, how are
right.
you doing this? And then after a bit, he's like, well, it's going to cost you 25,000 to go to court, 20,000 plus to go to court. And you can only have so many witnesses. And he kept trying to put it off for a year and a half. And um, I was like getting so upset. I'm like, okay, what about like legal aid? I'll go through legal aid. Can you get me as far as you can on the money that I've given you? And he said, yeah. Then he said, well, why don't you take my someone from my office for $100 less an hour? So I did. And um, the guy that I took, his name was Jesse Fear. My first lawyer was Garrett Horvath. And then Jesse Fear was my second lawyer. And then he said to me, and I have a lot of this recorded. I started recording lawyers, court staff, you name it, because I just don't trust them anymore. And he's like, you don't want them to lose their kids for impaired driving with an infant in the car, do you? People do it all the time.
Mhm, mhm,
Are you kidding? Why don't you
yeah,
tell that to Matt? Like these are children here that I'm trying to protect. I'm not trying to get my daughter in trouble, you know?
right, right.
And so we went to court. He faked he had a cold. Well, he said he had a cold. He didn't defend me. He didn't submit my affidavit or the evidence of a bruise on a 4-month-old baby,
Mm,
evidence of my daughter saying the boyfriend hurt the baby, the evidence where my daughter says that she believes her boyfriend's friend burned his house down. Now they're saying in court that they believe I had something to do with it. I phoned the fire marshal. Yeah, this is my daughter.
oh,
I didn't know she was saying bad stuff about me her whole life since teenager. So that was really, really hard. Uh, and sorry,
no, you know what?
I
I
told
think a lot of parents need to hear this because they're in the same situation. And,
you.
they've got kids that are saying bad things about them and they don't know why, what brought
Mhm.
this on. It's like people are sitting ducks and
Yeah,
it's the cancel culture.
that's what it seems like. It's almost like, well, I mean, my daughter knows my story growing up. So I almost feel like when things, as a teenager, when she was being picked on in school, which I don't know why, she's a very beautiful girl. She has a lot of talent. And so she didn't want to go to school anymore. And then she said she was suicidal. And then she said that her best friend, the one that wrote against me in court, was bullying her and that she was suicidal. So it's like this chronic stuff from teenager up.
Hmm.
It's just been a nightmare from teenager up with this type of stuff, but I didn't catch on right away. It took a long time for me to catch on. Um, and then she got I have 5 children, so she got my youngest son involved. So I have my first 2 older kids, and then I have the 2 middle, which is Daniel and Beth, and they're very close in age, and then my youngest daughter Emily. So she my son Daniel didn't want to get involved, and she involved him. She just took a conversation between them and submitted it to court. I just um, I was going to admit myself to the hospital. I wasn't coping. This is
Mm.
my these are my kids. This my son and daughter have done everything for.
Mhm.
And so it was pretty devastating. And my son ended up blocking me and My ex-husband wrote an affidavit for court. They wouldn't submit it, saying we've had problems with her since teenager. I said when he wrote it, isn't
Oh,
that hard? Because I'm always the protecting mom.
yeah,
And
yeah.
now I see it as I didn't see her that way. Now I do. you know?
Right, right.
And it's so hard because it's like, what caused you to be this very angry, manipulative person? Like, I'm not a perfect parent. None of us are, but I begged her for months, let's go for counseling. Let's do this. Like, why are you so angry? Nothing. Why are you so angry? You know?
Hmm.
And when all this stuff transpired, it began with a statement I made, which was my fault. At the very beginning, I had said to someone out of absolute frustration, if this doesn't stop, I'll take her to court. I should never have said that. But
Mm.
she should have also come to me and said, Mom, did you say that? I would have said, yes, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said it. They just don't know what was going on, why I said it,
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes you can only handle so much before you're kind of pushed over the edge emotionally.
Right.
And so, anyway, so I hire Garrett, and then Garrett sends me off to Jesse. And then Jesse, we get before Justice Pullman. And February 15th, 2024, Justice Pullman gave permission for me to make an interim contact application. And then everybody was speaking, but he would not allow me to speak. And I'm like, but you allowed my daughter. He goes, you have counsel. I said, but you allowed my daughter and her lawyers like attacking me with no evidence against me other than comments they're making. There's no evidence.
Hmm.
And my lawyer is not saying anything because he's sick until after court, which I recorded, and he was talking perfectly fine. And I said, can I speak, please? So he said, what? Everything she's saying is wrong. And I was just floored. I'm really naive about the courts. I'm really naive about corruption in the courts. Very naive. I just expect the law is going to protect you.
Hmm.
Lawyers are going to defend you. The judge is not going to allow nonsense in his courts. What an eye opener.
Right. For all of us, all of us. I can't tell you how many parents have come on and said the exact same thing you have said.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had gone to court with my daughter, with my granddaughter. My granddaughter's 8 now.
Mm.
And when he had moved in with him for maybe 5 months and then moved back home saying they were abusive. And so he had gone to court for parental rights, but she had told the lawyer that they didn't like Native people, and her lawyer was Native. Well, her lawyer's wife was also a judge, so we knew before we went back in court that these grandparents weren't getting access
Mm.
to their granddaughter, and the father was only going to have access in a public place.
Mm.
There's no evidence against them neither, but that's just how it works, I guess.
Right,
I
right.
walked out of the courtroom. I said, I feel really bad for them. They were paying someone to have supervised access to their granddaughter. Why couldn't they keep doing that?
Hmm.
But anyway, so back to my court stuff. Um, so we left court, and then I said to my lawyer Jesse, I said, okay, can you go ahead and like start that right away? He goes, no, I'd rather wait. We have to get all of our files in for trial by the end of May. And the more witnesses you have, the more it's going to cost you. And I'm like, why do they keep doing this? And so he refused to do the order, and then he stopped responding to me.
Mm.
So I was like, what the heck?
They
This is
all
my
do that.
lawyer. Yeah. And so then the legal aid lawyer that I had applied for previously suddenly emails me and says, do you want me to take over your case or close the file? And I said, oh, no, you can take over from here. So he went to take over. He was amazing. I just thought he was so nice. And then something changed in him.
Mm.
So he said to me, he said, I can't do the interim contact because it's not in the court order. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, your lawyer didn't put it in the court order. So I messaged my lawyer, Jesse Fearback, right away and say, why didn't you put it in the order? Well, he's just not responding. I was like, oh my gosh. So then Garrett, my first lawyer, immediately emails me and says, I have all this in email. He says, there's nothing wrong with this order. If you want to get the court transcript at $240, we will amend it. They know,
Mhm.
and I'm not ashamed to say it. It's not my fault. I'm on a disability pension because I have Lyme disease. And in Canada, you're not allowed to say you have Lyme disease. So it's affected my health. I have chronic fatigue
Mhm.
and a few other health issues. But in Canada, you're not allowed to say that. But anyway, he knew my financial situation, and all you're doing is soaking money at it. Like to me, that's extortion at this point. You know,
Right,
left, right,
right,
and center. You're abusing me. You're abusing my finances, and you're
right.
lying and manipulating. So I send back right away the proof that Jesse said that it only takes 2 weeks to file, 2 weeks before the judge. Why are you doing this? And he just refused to do anything with it. And then he said, if you remove your Google review, your bad Google review, I will help you. I said, okay. So I removed it because I'm so desperate, just like any parent
Oh,
out there, desperate, desperate to see your kids. You're just going to do what they ask. So I removed it. I waited a few days, still nothing from Garrett Horvath. And I sent him an email. And he said, okay, all you need to do is fill out this form, just erase the dates. I didn't know how to do all that. I had to get help. And I did all that, submitted it to the courts, and I was accused of misrepresenting myself as a lawyer, making it look like I forged his signature because his signature was on it and it was a lawyer's copy.
they're really reaching, aren't they?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Because my daughter's boyfriend's friend, whose house caught on fire, he's friends with my lawyer.
Mm,
So they're just going to abuse me. And at this point, I consider this just a sinister form of psychological and emotional abuse. How
mhm.
can you do this to me when you know I'm innocent? You've got the evidence. You even have 4 videos of my granddaughter saying, in one video, she says her mom's boyfriend said that she was brainwashed because she was concerned that I was locked out of my house. In another video, she's saying, my mom said that you told a lady that you were going to call the police and take me away and I'm never going to see my family again. So I was getting really angry with my daughter. Why are you guys doing this? She's 6 years old, you
Oh,
know? Yeah. And there's a really, really sad video of her talking about doing this magic trick and that her mom's going to turn into a rat. And then she's going
mm.
to capture her. It's just really, really sad. And if any child psychologist listened to it, they would be devastated. And she said, and then I would capture my mom
Hmm.
and then she would be with me. And it bothered me. I'm like, I said to my daughter, all she wants is to be with you. Ever since you were 8 months pregnant with your son, you don't even allow her to sleep over anymore. She loves you. Like I wasn't fighting to take her away. I was fighting to protect her, you know?
Right. So she was at your house, your daughter and your granddaughter were at your house, but then your daughter left and left the granddaughter with you?
Yeah. And she would go visit her mom. Her mom lived an hour and a half away in Kelowna, and I would take her and drop her off, and usually for 5 days, and then she'd come back to me for a couple of weeks and back to her mom. Like we were okay with this, but I wasn't okay because I knew that it was affecting my granddaughter.
Hmm.
Like I'm divorced. I don't believe in separating my kids from their dad. That's their dad. He loves them too. We all
Hmm.
have faults, right? But
Yeah.
yeah. And uh, so then my new lawyer said he couldn't apply for interim contact, and I made the decision that I was just going to self litigate. And then once all that stuff transpired, he said, "What are you doing? You're not allowed to do that. You can't self represent when you've obtained me as a lawyer through legal aid now." And I said, "But you said you couldn't do that for me." And he goes, "Well, I just talked to my supervisors and they said I can go ahead and do it." What he did, I found out in June, last June, was I need to find the right word. So word recollection has been a problem since having Lyme. Uh, he adjourned trial dates indefinitely without telling me back in April. And this is now June.
Mm.
Why? I said,
Wow.
Connor, why are you doing this? And he said, my supervisors told me. I later find out from Gray Welk and Spencer that he was an independent lawyer that was just working out of their Calgary office. And they called me. And I apologized profusely for including them in anything because I didn't mean to do that. And yeah, he just lied so much. I have him on so many recordings lying, and which is good, which is a good thing.
Hmm.
Um, So then I decide, so Connor quits. I no longer have a lawyer. And I'm sent right back. I decide I'm going to apply on my own. Court tells me I'm not allowed to. And then my daughter's lawyer is screenshotting. I go public. I
Yeah.
go public because then I get an email from Justice Pullman office saying it is improper for a self-represent litigant to email the judge privately and not to CC the lawyers. I'm like, I didn't email you privately. Court resolution told me to email the justice's secretary and CC the lawyers involved. So I thought it was Garrett and Jesse. I didn't think I had to CC my daughter's lawyer. I don't know about the like lawyer
Hmm.
things, I don't know any of that stuff. I worked in healthcare, you know,
Right.
I raised
Right.
kids, I had kids, and so anyway, um, Justice Pullman, yeah, accused me of that. And then my daughter's lawyer is like, look at what she's doing, emailing the judge privately. I said, I didn't email him privately. So then I sent court resolution an email and said, we're not allowed to do that. And she responded right away and said, yes, we are. We've been doing it this way for years. So I immediately sent that to them. They escalated me to the executive, to the chief counsel, who now micromanages every single email that goes into that court and prevents my letters of complaint to go to the chief justice, prevents everything that I'm trying to do next. He's stopping everything. It goes directly to him. I've got all this in evidence. So I make an application, and when my daughter's lawyer starts emailing the judge the stuff that's on social media, because I went public, I took all the evidence that the lawyers didn't submit and I submitted it to the judge. There's one way to get it into the court, and he withdrew himself from my case. Talk about corrupt. That is not okay. There's a 6-year-old child, but there's also a little boy. We don't know what's going on there.
Hmm.
These are children. I tried calling CAS. I didn't really want them involved because I understand a lot of what goes on with CAS,
Hmm.
but I'm concerned at this point. If you can falsely accuse me and you can willingly emotionally traumatize that little girl and not protect those kids and make up all these lies about me, I see you as a danger. Like, how
Hmm.
far will you go to prevent contact to me and my granddaughter?
It's amazing how far people will go.
Yeah.
It's it blows my mind. People will, even in my case, my ex wanted me in jail so I would not be around the kids. It's just,
It just, like, when you look at relationships, you're in these relationships because there was, you guys fell in love. You, when you're raising kids together, put aside your differences and remember that you still love that person at one point. That child's half of them. I can't wrap my head around this
uh,
kind of torment and abuse. Narcissistic, sociopathic abuse is how I see it.
hmm. Hmm. Oh yeah, these judges, your justices, I guess you call them that over there, and lawyers, uh, you know, they're all, in my opinion, they all fall into this realm of sociopathy.
Yeah.
From
Yeah.
Yeah, from what I've seen over with ours, it just doesn't change. It's a global problem, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it really is, because through all this, I learned to reach out to a lot of people, even in the States, and I talk to a lot of people there, and I see the nightmare of what's going on with CPS there. Do you call it CPS or CAS?
CPS.
Okay, I think here it's CAS. And so, yeah, and I'm reading their stories and I've joined some of their groups, and it's like, what a nightmare. Why is it that our government is, to me, looks like destroying our children? Pardon me, intentionally,
Mm-hmm.
because they're allowing this to happen. So I had sent letters to, pardon me, um, our governor general. She just doesn't respond at all. Um, every member of parliament, like everything, the premier of Alberta, because I thought, whoa, here's a lady here who's fighting for freedom. Da, da, da. She just doesn't even respond at all. And then I start reaching out to people in the public and find out there's a whole lot of us across Canada. First, I thought it was like a big Alberta thing. And then I like find out, oh, it's across Canada. This is so bad. It's not funny. It's a nightmare. Like,
Yeah.
I just can't believe it. I can't believe that these parents are willing to jeopardize your children. Like, these are your children. I'm here
Mhm.
trying to protect mine. So
So then,
anyway, so then, pardon?
oh no, go ahead. I don't want to interrupt you.
I had a very dysfunctional marriage. We came out of a very kind of cultish church. They picked who we could marry, when we could marry. Like, it was very an abusive background, anyways. So that didn't help. Um, and my ex-husband and I are friends today, but yeah, we had abuse in our home. And I did every, but see, we were total opposites. He was not kid oriented. I was. I protected my kids probably tooth and nail, and he was overly strict and, to me, abusive. Specifically with my older two boys. But he wrote a letter for me for court because
Right.
he knows what my daughter's been like, and he knows what kind of parent I am.
Mhm.
I asked his brother, who's a United Pentecostal pastor, if he would write for me because I did home daycare for them, and just what I was like back then. And he wouldn't, because she's family and I'm not now.
Oh,
So the truth doesn't matter, even as a pastor. Like, I can't wrap my head around this stuff.
right. Right. A lot of people can't because it's
Yeah.
like you knew what I was before all this happened.
Yeah.
So,
And I just don't get it. And then back before she took off with the kids, January, I reached out to a family friend who's also an ECE teacher. Oh, she said she was. I'm very close with her. She's also had a fallings out with my daughter. And she's an ECE teacher. So I thought, great. Look, is this abuse? I think it's abuse. Do you think it's abuse? I don't want to get legal help. I want an intervention with my daughter. Like, I'm doing everything desperately so my daughter can see that what's happening and the bruise on my grandson, that the lawyers withheld from the courts, and my daughter's text saying that her boyfriend did it. This is the stuff that the lawyers are withholding from the courts. I'm just trying to protect a couple of little kids and my daughter. I think my daughter needs counseling. Um,
mhm.
Physically abusive, no. Does she mentally play games? Yeah, absolutely. In this whole process, when I had to take my daughter to court, I had to also submit an affidavit. I made two applications, one for my granddaughter. So that went to my daughter and my granddaughter's dad, and then one for my grandson. My lawyer, Garrett Horvath, got rid of the one for my grandson and never told me. He went to court 3 times on my behalf, never told me. I have all that in printed off, hidden in various places, because I can't trust the courts here. Nobody defends you in Canada. There's no justice system to protect us. Danielle Smith said she was a freedom fighter. I think that was just to get votes. She responds to no one. She doesn't protect anyone. I've gone public. I speak to everyone publicly now. I've witnessed the stories, and it's like, oh my gosh. So
Mhm.
it's not just me. You know,
Yeah.
for a while there, I thought I was losing my mind. I really did. Like, that is psychological abuse by the courts and by the lawyers that, in the end, are protecting my abuser. My daughter has become my abuser.
Oh,
Yeah,
so
because that's what it
sad.
is. And I have all the evidence. And her friend, she was best friends as a child. Her mom and I were best friends. She became an ECE teacher. And when I reached out to her, she has a lot of the information. She ended up lying against me in court and saying that, like, the stuff that I have, and it shows two different sides of the story, is like, man, if you just submit this, you'll see these guys. This is perjury. This is
Mhm.
blatant perjury. I have all the evidence. They're not, because they have inside help. So my daughter's boyfriend, his brother-in-law is a lawyer. They got all the help they needed. And the guy who potentially, we don't know for sure, suspicion of setting the house on fire when we were in New Brunswick for 6 months, he's friends with my lawyer. They're all connected.
They're all connected.
Oh my gosh, we're talking about children here. Here you go. Here's the bruise.
Yeah.
Here you go. Here's all the evidence. And they just withheld it from the courts. It's been over 2 years. Lawyers withholding evidence.
Hmm.
When I first hired my lawyer, Garrett, he said, wow, you've got a really strong case. You will have custody. I said, I don't want my daughter to be in trouble. I just want my granddaughter back in my life because I basically raised her and we
Hmm.
are so close. And it just blows my mind that the lawyers are willing to jeopardize children. They are willing to
Oh,
jeopardize
yes.
children.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Same over here.
Yep.
Definitely. And
Yep.
the
So
judges aren't looking at evidence either, or maybe sometimes the clerks don't give them evidence to look at that they need to look
yeah,
at.
that's exactly what happened with me.
Hmm.
The
I,
lawyers weren't submitting anything on my behalf. And then when I was representing, they escalated me to the Chief Justice's. I wish I could recollect his name now. They escalated me to him. And so everything stops at this guy named Daryl Ruthers. And so he's like the executive. I'm sorry, I forget the name now. So he stops all my emails now. It's like, are you kidding me? This is so corrupt and I'm going public with it.
and
When
so
they
he's
make you
acting
sign,
like a gatekeeper.
that's exactly what he's doing because he's now protecting the lawyers who are abusing me. And you're withholding evidence of child endangerment and child abuse because the bruise was submitted as well on a 4-month infant. And my
Ah,
daughter's text saying the boyfriend did it. They literally are not submitting it to court. Uh,
yeah, you would think if she's saying the boyfriend did it, she would come back and stay with
yeah,
you.
yeah. She lived next door to me. And it's like, are you kidding me? So I just, I
Oh.
just, so I ended up calling when there's so much involved in this story. So the boyfriend and his friend, who was a CAS employee, uh, their house burnt down. You can look it up. Memram Cook, New Brunswick, July 31st, the house burnt down. So I have a letter from the owner given to court saying that it was um it was faulty something or other. I can't remember for sure now. And I have the fire chief and the fire marshal saying it's arson.
Mhm.
It's like, but their friend is the one who's helping them,
Ah.
who's friends with my lawyer. And it's like he's friends with my lawyer, like him and his family. So I'm literally being framed by my daughter who has help from lawyers to frame me. And I have the evidence to prove my innocence. I'm not perfect by any means, but
But
I'm not this horrendous monster that she's trying to now make me out to be.
so
She told
wrong.
court, yeah, her applications and everything went in that I was going to kidnap her kids. And oh, yeah, yeah. Like, are you kidding me? And yet I have the bruise on a 4-month baby.
Mm.
Like, I have all that. I have my granddaughter saying what my daughter's boyfriend is saying to her. And it's just horrendous. These are children. These are
Mm.
children. The courts only care about money. They don't care about anything else but money. But these are children. And who cares for the children? Like it's just, it is horrendous. So now, of course, my daughter's got a lot of people involved now. And
Mhm.
they all know she has inside help. So they're all like, just like, I'm like, I've got the evidence here. But my lawyers aren't submitting it. And now when I submit evidence, so I went back to court in July,
Mm.
submitted my evidence, and you're not allowed to record court,
Yeah.
right? You're not allowed to record court. But what they don't know is my court's on video call, just like you and I are. And so I have a big group of people standing off to the side now watch. And they're like, oh, because
Mm.
I went to court. And when I went to court, they removed my daughter's name from the application and my grandchildren's name from my last court appearance in July in King's Court Bench in Calgary, Alberta. They removed their names from the file and they removed the evidence. And he's like, what are you doing here? Asking for custody of these kids. Who are the kids? Don't you have it in front of you?
Mm.
And that's the court executive, King's Court Bench, Daryl Ruthers. He has got his hand in so many cases of violating our rights. And are you kidding me? And then I said, well, excuse me, Your Honor. I said, don't you see on page 16 and 17 the bruise? Don't you see the bruise on my grandson? Don't you see my daughter's text saying that the boyfriend did it? No. I said, don't you see where about the fire? He said, no. And I'm like, wow. And he just kicked me out of court. Yeah, it's that bad.
It
So
is.
we've got the executor to the chief justice violating my rights and withholding evidence to the court. So you're right, I've gone public and I've printed everything off and I've got them in secure places because I've talked to a lot of other people as well and what happens when you have evidence against the court.
Mhm.
Um, and they literally send people to harass you and stuff. So I
Mhm.
said, okay, I'll go public with everything. I don't care anymore. I just don't care. You guys are abusing me. You're violating my rights. I got to the point at one point that I didn't think that I was even I wasn't sleeping. I was having panic attacks, anxiety. Um, because it's one thing for my own daughter to falsely accuse me, which is abuse, but to have lawyers that I'm paying for, that I've sold
Yeah.
absolutely everything that I own to obtain, like everything, my car, everything, to obtain this lawyer so that I have a good lawyer. And he's a prominent lawyer,
Mhm.
and they're abusing me
Oh.
and withholding evidence of child abuse. Like, so I went public. I don't care who you are. I just don't
Mhm.
care. Like that's so wrong.
So they're also accusing you of child abuse.
Well, my daughter is now. She's
Hmm.
saying that I'm abusive and I manipulate. I'm the one with the evidence, not her. Hers are just made up stories, which are being
Hmm.
accepted in court, but they're not accepting my stuff. The lawyers are withholding everything, and these are lawyers that I've paid for. My ex-husband actually helped me
Oh.
as well, and he just can't believe it. And I said, these guys are so corrupt. These are lawyers. And executive to the chief justice Daryl Ruthers, these guys are all doing this, and then three judges just letting it slide.
So
And
this
then yeah,
this
go ahead.
Daryl Ruthers is a chief justice.
At King's Court bench, Calgary, Alberta. Yep.
Hmm.
And I've talked to other people. There's other cases, the same thing with him involved. And there's also a child trafficking case in Alberta, and it's being silenced.
Hmm.
Danielle Smith, the premier, just will not even respond to it or investigate. He has an ACERT investigation. Are you kidding me? Child trafficking. Are you kidding? So I'm not going to be quiet.
Hmm.
It'll be a coffin before I'm quiet because I have always been, I always speak up for children. I'm not saying I was ever perfect in any way as a mom, but I will speak up to defend children and I will speak up for those that are, if I see someone on the street and someone's beating them up, I'm gonna step in, I'm gonna speak up, I'm gonna call the police, right? And
Right.
so
Yeah, it's
it blows
unbelievable.
my mind that
Yeah.
these are lawyers and this is a court, and you've got Justice Pullman. You're corrupt. I'm going to say that. You can get whoever you want against me. You're corrupt. You know what they're doing. You guys are playing along with this. You're violating my rights. You're abusing me. Like I was going to admit myself to the hospital at one point. I wasn't coping. I just was
Oh.
not coping. For I was in an abusive marriage. And because of the United Pentecostal Church, you can't talk about abuse in the United Pentecostal Church because then you're of the devil, you
Mm.
know? And and we were not allowed to talk about it, especially because his brothers were in the ministry. And this court, and him and I are friends today. We're friends today. We get along. We have children and grandchildren together. But I will never be silenced against abuse, especially abuse to children, ever, ever, ever. And I say that because I came from a home where there was abuse. And especially back in our time, I'm 60 years old, right? Back in our day, they hid so much. And we thought we were getting somewhere and progressing in society. And now you see that you actually have the lawyers hiding abuse and abusing you.
Hmm.
It's horrendous. So anyway, so then I end up applying, making my own application, and that gets turned down, and now no lawyer will take my case here in Canada. They will take it as soon as after, like by the end of the day, I'm getting a phone call. Sorry, we can't take your case. Why? Why? So I turned to Christian lawyers thinking these are Christians, right? They're going to see the evidence and say, this is wrong. Oh, no, we're not touching you. I said,
Oh,
really? And you're Christians. So then I got a lawyer from, um, because I was Christian and then I was Messianic for a while. So then I got a lawyer from a Jewish law firm thinking, okay, well, that's where the abuse began. That's where the abuse began with the lawyers.
mm,
So I've gone to their synagogues thinking, okay, like, can you guys like take care of this? And no, nothing, nothing. And it's like, wow, what is wrong with society that they accept abusing a grandmother, but also making vulnerable innocent children? It is not okay.
mm-mm, mm-mm.
I,
Shame on them.
yeah, like I've got all the evidence that backs me from the lawyers abusing me, from the courts abusing me. I've got the lawyers, uh, I've got the email between my daughter and I have all that,
Right.
but they're protecting her. They're protecting her because she has connections. Her boyfriend's brother-in-law is a lawyer in Burnaby, BC. I put stuff on his wall because I don't care anymore.
Hmm.
I just don't care. I'm not lying. I've got
Right.
the evidence. So
Yeah.
I believe we have a creator. I don't believe in religion
Mhm.
anymore. I've come out from all of that, but I believe that we have a creator and I believe integrity is everything.
Mhm.
But just there's no justice here in Canada. There's just not. There's no place to turn for help at all. There's just no place to turn. They all turn you away.
Well, I know when I was running my federal case, I couldn't get anyone to defend me either. Like these guys don't want to work. You're willing to throw them a bone and they still don't want to work.
Yeah.
I just couldn't figure it out, so I just did it myself. Like,
Yeah, I can, but
ah,
I don't know. I can, but like I feel like I'm a lot stronger now. But as soon as I have to go over the files, I'm just a mess again. Like, this is my
yeah.
daughter. Like this is my daughter coming against me. I have fought for her and supported her. And even when I started suspecting that, I even said to her, like, do you want to go for counseling? You've got
Mhm.
some issues here, and if there's stuff with me that I just don't see, like, let's go for counseling. No, no, all the time, and I like it's so hopeless when we have a society that it seems apparently in Canada, eh, that I can just say from my experience is that children are placed with the abusers, and
Hmm.
then the innocent people are abused by the courts and our judicial system.
Right. Same here.
Yeah. And in Canada, we always thought the states was corrupt.
Oh,
We did, and now it's like, oh no, this
yeah.
is this is here. Like, in my lawyers have all the evidence. They have the video recordings. They have my granddaughter telling her stories, saying how mean that she thinks her mom's boyfriend is. And
Mm.
she only likes him a little bit because he's mean to her whenever she goes over there. Yeah, my lawyers have all this and they're withholding evidence. And there's no place to turn in Canada for justice. None.
No.
So we go
Oh.
public. And
Hmm.
that is our only saving grace because shame on them. And shame on people like Danielle Smith. I don't call her premier. Shame on her for being what do you call it? So two-faced, giving people all these hopes and all these dreams that you're freedom fighters, you're a part of this, you're a part of that. But every single one of us that have called on her for help, and that's 2 years, over 2 years for me, she does not respond whatsoever. And there's an ACERT investigation of child trafficking. She's not responding to that guy neither. Like, she has just disappointed so many people. She has
Oh.
her little select group in Canada,
Hmm.
and like when they did the recent election, she selected who could vote, and she had to guarantee, and they were well vetted before they were allowed to go in this convention place and vote for her. It was a closed, yeah. The rest of us weren't allowed to vote. Like, it
Oh.
is so, so corrupt in Canada, in our judicial system, in our government, and it's just absolutely unbelievable that there is no place to turn for justice.
just terrible, terrible.
Yeah. You can't turn to, I turned to a Jewish lawyer, I turned to a Christian lawyer. None of them will take your case. Nobody
Mhm.
will,
I mean,
because nobody wants to expose the courts, I guess.
right. And a lot of parents here are representing themselves because they can't get attorneys either.
Yeah.
It's a sad state of affairs.
And I did back in July. Um, I represented myself, but the people in the court, Daryl Ruthers, he is withholding my evidence before the court. And oh, it gets even worse. Karina Gillies is the first person that I have to email. She is the one actually setting everything up. And I'm like, okay. So in the end, I end up calling her out. Well, then they tell me you're not allowed to talk to the court anymore. You're not allowed to, yeah, I'm not allowed to even speak with court staff because they know I'm going public. I'm going to report everything and I'm going public.
Hmm.
These guys are corrupt. You're denying me justice and denying a little girl protection and a little boy with a bruise from his own father with it written in text from my daughter, and you are not protecting these children or my rights because they have connections. Yeah.
That's
And
how
there's
bad it
no
is.
place. Yep. I've written to the Supreme Court. I've written to Mary Simon. Nobody can reach her. Nobody. All the people that I went public, I went to the streets, I started talking to people, and I said, let's start exposing it. Let's have a rally. I don't really care anymore. What are you going to do? Shoot me dead? Here's the evidence. I said, don't come with posters. We want justice. Come with your evidence and show the world. And people started backing out. They were scared because there's stories of people being beat up, sent by the courts. I'm like, are you kidding? I'm really naive about the courts
Well,
and the
we all
justice
were.
system.
We all
Yeah.
were.
Yeah.
We were all taught that, judges do the right thing. It's all going to be okay in there because there's going to be justice, and it doesn't turn out
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah. And a Christian law firm won't take my case, and the Jewish law firm because I was messianic for a couple of years, and so I thought, okay, I understand the difference between Zionism and Judaism.
Yeah, they won't take it.
They're the ones that abused me. That's where my lawyer's from.
Right. That was that your first lawyer?
That's the lawyer who obstructed justice. That's my lawyer Garrett and Jesse, both from Kahane Law in Alberta. I've even written to their owner, Jeff Kahane. He just doesn't respond. So I wrote to all the Jewish synagogues because you're supposed to protect women and children.
Mm-mm.
Well, that's a lie. That's a lie. So I go public with everything because what do I have to lose? I'm a 60-year-old grandmother. My youngest daughter is 20 years old, just devastated because my granddaughter and her were like best friends. And I'm being abused by lawyers and the courts of Alberta. I live in British Columbia.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's just terrible what you're going through.
But what about the kids at the end of the day? What about that little girl who lived with me? And then when my daughter got pregnant, she wouldn't allow my granddaughter to sleep over anymore because it was too hard for her because she was having problems. So my granddaughter never slept over from the time my daughter was 8 months pregnant until the day she took off with her.
Hmm.
Can you imagine what that does to a little girl? And and my youngest daughter here is her best friend, and no contact. You're not letting us call her. We tuck her in every night. Like we love her. We're helping you out. And you're mad at me because I made a comment I should not have made to someone. You're right. I was just desperate. I was desperate because I've been asking my daughter for years to go for counseling,
Mm-mm.
asking her for years. But when you
Oh,
take your own child and you'll use them as a pawn instead of caring about their emotions and what's important and what's right for them, I just think you should be behind bars. That is child abuse. That is emotional and psychological child abuse.
hmm hmm. Oh,
And who knows what this poor little girl, she's 8 now. I don't want to talk about her. I can't do that.
yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, I'm glad you spoke out on all of this now, uh, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, no, that's it. Just like it's so horrendous here in Canada. We have no place to turn for justice. You have to have big bucks and have connections. There's just no justice here.
Hmm.
Everything's a lie, and it's been this way for years and years. I mean, I've asked so many parents, do you guys want to go public? Like we've got to do something. I don't want just, I even said, let's just do, the Freedom Convoy did something. They wouldn't share my stories, by the way. They
Mm,
wouldn't share it. And I'm like, why? Why aren't you guys
right.
sharing stories of our justice? Our justice system is broken. They're abusing us. I'm a
Hmm.
grandmother. I'm innocent. I'm
Oh,
retired from Fraser Health, and
right.
you're abusing me.
Oh, how horrible. Horrible.
Yep.
If anyone has any questions, how can they reach you?
Um, I don't really know. I'm on social media under Detta Collins. Detta's a nickname that we got from Heidi.
Uh-huh.
And so Detta Collins, you can find me on social media, Instagram, and my Facebook is private because my daughter had people harassing me and stalking me and
Gotcha.
sharing my stuff. So I had to set it to private, unfortunately. But yeah, they can reach me just on Instagram, I guess.
Okay.
I did join a couple others, but I'm not very good online with online stuff.
I don't
I'm
blame
just
you.
not.
It's all right. Well, hey, don't jump off, okay? Slab the Gavel's a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these courtrooms. I'm your host, Maryann Petri. You can find me on Spotify, YouTube. Please like and subscribe, Apple, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google, and other platforms I don't know about. Again, feel free to buy me a coffee to help keep this podcast going. Thank you, Claudette Collins, for speaking out. God bless you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it so much.